David Meyler, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, Jerry. You okay?
Yeah, pretty good. I said at the start of the show, that was a weekend where everything we thought we knew about the Premier League, we kind of all feel it even stronger after the weekend. Nobody's making us pause for thought. Man United have midfield problems. Liverpool are very good. Chelsea are very good. Maybe Arsenal aren't a complete spineless mess. That's the one thing that happened over the course of the weekend. But let's start with Chelsea, right? Because Nathan was just talking about them there. They've got a brilliant manager, a brilliant squad, and it's hard to see where the limit for their potential is at the moment. So, are they an unstoppable juggernaut? Is anything going to derail them?
They just have serious momentum from winning the Champions League last year. They've just come back into the start of this season and they've just kicked right on like there was no break or no internationals, no Euros or nothing. Like you just see yesterday's game, Nathan touched on it there. It's not working for them first half. Their midfield is getting overrun. Tottenham had the run of the green really, and then he just brings on Kante, brings off Mason Mount, and then they just get a foothold in the game, and they just steamroll Tottenham. Tottenham never looked like they were going to get back into the game. You looked at the Tottenham players; they looked deflated, they looked flat. There was no effort, endeavour from them. They weren't working for one another. But just at the same time, you have to give great credit to Tuchel for making that change, seeing that there was a problem. Like, bring on Kante, who's just controlling the game, winning the ball back. He spoke after about the intensity. He brought that to the midfield, his closing down, his interceptions, his winning the ball back, his positioning. And of course, then, not really something we, really familiarised with Kante, but he gets the goal, albeit, it's a wicked deflection, but it was an incredible performance from him. But the thing is, last week, during the Champions League, we're talking about Solskjaer, getting his substitutions wrong. And then you look at Chelsea yesterday, someone like Tuchel was saying, this isn't working, this isn't right, we're not at our level, what can I do to change it? I bring Kante on, and and behold, they go and win the game 3-0.
He's making good players better as well. You look at that midfield of Kante, Jorginho and Kovacic, and everyone has raved about Kante for years, but there were a lot of question marks about Jorginho and Kovacic as to what their roles were, and Jorginho taking Kante's place as the holding midfielder and sort of been happy to just play the simple ball all the time. Like, he's been transformed into now, well, he is the European midfielder of the season. What has he done in midfield that has somehow brought the best out of all those?
I think Jorginho is one of them. You either understand what his role is in the team or you don't. It goes back to when Sarri was in charge. Like, Jorginho is the type, he's not going to set the game on fire in terms of his play, but it's just his level of understanding of playing in the six. He brings an assertive control to the midfield that if you look at him, it might be 5 yards, 5 yard passing backwards, sideways or whatever, but he dictates the pace of the game. He's very comfortable in possession. I wouldn't say that there's been a great uprise in his performances from when Sarri was there, and that's like obviously going back a few years ago. I think he's been very consistent in that because his style of play is a particular way. I think the biggest thing Tuchel has done is found a way to get them so organised out of possession that they don't give up spaces. Like, the prime example of the game we always go back to is the Liverpool one. They go down to 10 men. But they never really looked like conceding. Now, you could say that Liverpool's attacking options in that were poor. But Tuchel has brought something into Chelsea that makes them resilient. It's just so solid, the experience they have. Like, he brought Azpilicueta back in. Like Thiago Silva, you look at his performance yesterday I think he's 37 next week. It was just phenomenal, his awareness. Now, I know you asked me about Chelsea's midfield, but I think it's a complete package what he's done. Like, he's made them so defensively solid. Since he took over, they've had the most clean sheets in the Premier League. Like, that stuff's incredible. And, they say forwards win you games, defenders win you titles. And that's evident in his performance. And then when you've got players like Kante as well, it's just phenomenal. And, you mentioned Kovacic. He's always been probably that driving force in midfield where he likes to pick up the ball and carry it a lot. He's a very neat and tidy player. But he's just found a way to get them all to click and all to gel that, look, Frank Lampard couldn't do.
I mean, look, the comparisons with Lampard are poor Lampard, obviously, because the team has exploded into one of the best teams in world football, and who knows how long they're going to be able to remain at the top. It looks like quite the while. The quality of the play that he's getting from the older players is something that you mentioned there. Like, a lot of managers would have come in and discarded Azpilicueta, or obviously, did he sign Thiago, or was Thiago already there?
Thiago was already there.
Thiago's already there. But like, you can see why. Oh, I'm going to build a team. I'm going to take some time. I'm going to make sure that I get that 18-month window that managers seem to get. But he was like, no, these players are really good. And Marcos Alonso even is somebody that you kind of felt like, well, maybe he won't suit a coach like Tuchel. That's a peculiar man management skill that isn't just I'm a tactical nerd. I'm a kind of a bit of a genius who sees triangles where everybody else only sees 2D. Like, that's an underrated part, it seems, of his managerial talent.
Yeah, of course. Because, look, the first thing he did when he took over was he brought Azpilicueta back into the side. He reinstated him as captain, and he played, I believe off the top of my head, he's actually played the most games for Chelsea since Tuchel has come in. Now, Frank obviously had been at Chelsea, played with Azpilicueta, and obviously he managed him. I don't know what happened. Azpilicueta, I imagine anyone who's ever watched Chelsea play or ever watched any interview, Azpilicueta wouldn't really seem like a bad guy. I think he's a fella that you'd want, in the trenches with you. You look at his performance yesterday. You touched on Marcos Alonso. I think that they signed Ben Chilwell for 50 plus million, and now he can't get into the side. And even Tuchel did an interview the other day where he said, like, Alonso didn't go on international duty, stayed, worked really hard. He's doing really well, and he deserves his spot in the side. Most managers would have probably gone back to Ben Chilwell, albeit he more or less had a tough year personally with England because he didn't feature much in the Euros. But in terms of like the way he's got them to bring in Azpilicueta, to bring in Alonso, and if you look at yesterday, second half especially, those two are bombing forward all the time. There was a great example of a ball getting crossed in where Azpilicueta keeps it alive. And it's Marcos Alonso who's having the shot in the goal. It's just what he's done with Chelsea is incredible. And it's no disrespect to Frank Lampard as a manager, but he's taken them on 2-3 levels. You can see someone who has that experience of managing, in big games, big teams in Dortmund, PSG. He's learned his trade. He's got great experience, and he's found a way to get Chelsea going. And they're going to be very difficult to stop this season.
It must be a great thing for squad atmosphere as well to have a coach who is open-minded and willing to change his opinion, because Marcos Alonso was, I think, expected to leave the club maybe in the January transfer window, again strongly linked with moves away during the summer because they had Ben Chilwell there, but he obviously saw enough of Alonso to want to keep him. Likewise at the back, they were desperate to sign Koundé from Sevilla. There were question marks about Rudiger, there were question marks about Christensen. They didn't get that, but it doesn't seem to have impacted in any way on the confidence of the centre halves.
No, it hasn't. And even if you look at it as well, he's sold Kurt Zouma to West Ham. We've seen his performance against Manchester United. Like, he's made a couple of calls that, some would question. Obviously, people who watch Chelsea all the time, or, certainly their fan base would be looking kind of going, well, I'm not sold on Rudiger. Alonso needs to move on. Do you know what I mean? Kurt Zouma is the one. Even Fikayo Tomori, if you remember when he came in under Frank, he did really well. He moved him on. He's made some really big calls at times, but they've all worked and they've all paid off. Like Chelsea, like I said, they look like a title-winning team. They look like they're going to be very difficult to stop. They look like they're going to keep clean sheets. Obviously, they've gone and signed Lukaku fresh off winning Champions League. They look like they're going to create chances. We all know that Lukaku will score goals if he's given enough service. He's done wonderful things with them, and any team I feel that finish above Chelsea will win the Premier League.
Next couple of weeks going to be absolutely massive as well, because Chelsea, Manchester City Saturday, and then the following weekend Liverpool, Manchester City.
And he's got the upper hand on Guardiola. You look at the FA Cup, the league games, everything last season. Do you know what I mean? He's kind of got Guardiola's card marked.
Yeah.
He kind of understands what he's doing, and he set them up. All right, I believe they were both fresh off the Champions League game, and they both rotated their squads in the first league game. But still, Tuchel knows he's found ways to beat that Manchester City side, so that will be a fascinating game.
Yeah, Pep needs to stop. I don't know.
Tinkering with everything.
Well, I don't want to reach the cliche about overthinking stuff, but he should have put out a stronger team against Chelsea to get the record, to go, yeah, actually we've beaten this club now. We understand it. It's no big deal. It's just, but now it seems like they're in his head a little bit. You mentioned there if any team finishes above them, right? So if you're sitting in in Jurgen Klopp's office and Klopp is talking about Chelsea and their strengths, he's picking weaknesses. He's like, well, Thiago's quite old. do they fully believe in Christensen? Why are they playing three at the back the whole time? What are those conversations that he's having about where the weakness in Chelsea, where the little crack is going to appear over the course of the next 30 games in the league that gives him hope?
I suppose for me straight away, the first thing that you highlight with Chelsea would be you have to go after the left-hand side. Rudiger is, he's a good defender. He's very quick, strong, but he's rash in a challenge. I think Marcus Alonso's positioning at times defensively is all over the place. I don't think he's a particularly great defender. And then you've got probably one of the most informed players in the world in Mohamed Salah on that side. If it was, Liverpool v Chelsea that you're hoping that go that way. So you're going to imagine that if, Guardiola is looking at it, who am I going to play? Am I going to get someone like Riyad Mahrez over on that side, or do I go with Bernardo Silva, etc., or someone that's going to work up and down? But I think Alonso offers Chelsea a lot going forward. He's very good. We've seen that year in, year out when he has played, that he scores goals, he gets himself into great positions. But there has always been massive question marks over his defending. So any team playing Chelsea, you're going to look to try and isolate those two on the left-hand side and try and get down there. And it is difficult because you've got three centre-halves then to cover for him. So if Rudiger does get pulled out of position, Thiago Silva is that experienced, that clever, has that know-how to slide across. He's going to drag Christensen in with him. Azpilicueta wouldn't be as good, particularly going forward, but he's always been very reliable and he's a solid one-on-one defender. He'll tuck round. They've still inevitably got a back four in place, even if the wing-back gets caught out of position. So that's the beauty of him and the way he has them organised and drilled, that they just shift nicely across in a line. And they're going to be very difficult to break down.
Cannot wait for these couple of games. These are elite world football matches we're going to see over the next couple of weeks. I think Liverpool and Manchester City over the last 3-4 years brought it to a whole new level. Probably the best we've seen, if not better, since Arsenal, Manchester United back in
Keane Vieira.
The Keane Vieira era. We were lucky to cover an awful lot of those games. The speed of those matches and the technical ability you need to be able to pull things off was just as good as anywhere in the world. And now Chelsea, it feels, are part of that as well. So to have the three of them going head to head over the next couple of weeks, it could be already, particularly for Manchester City, the next 2 weeks, if they were to go badly wrong,
if they lose them both, it'd be great for the story if they were to lose them both, because then they would have to come roaring back in the second half of the season. Just a quick word about Spurs before we move on, because so Villa were beaten 3-0 by Chelsea last week, but they had the players who were quarantining, and so it wasn't the real Villa. You'd still be disappointed they didn't put more up against Chelsea. You expect Spurs in the games against the top four not to roll over and have their belly tickled, because that's the whole point of having a league where you've got $1 billion stadium and you've got one of the best players in the world, or a collection of players you've invested tens of hundreds of millions in over a period of time. But they were completely useless in the second half yesterday. How did that happen? How did they stand over that? How are they looking at themselves in training this week and going, yeah, we are professionals getting paid to do this?
That's a very difficult question. Like you touched on there, right? They have got one of the best, strikers in the world. He's not playing as a striker, is he? There's too much at times of him dropping way too deep. There was a prime example yesterday, if you remember, when Reguilon burst down the left wing. They had some nice play that came through in the defensive third. Harry Kane was 40 yards away from the goal. And you're kind of thinking, you're the man who's to get us the goals. You've done it year in, year out. Now, I know he's a wonderful range of passing. The assists last season were off the charts for a striker, everything. But it's just, he seems fed up. I think once the kind of, he'd come out and made his statement saying that he was staying, and I think, the team Tottenham obviously started really well in the Premier League. He's kind of come back in now as their mainstay, and it's just not working. He does look fed up. His body language is off. There's no getting away from that. He just looks like he wants out. I think he thought there was going to be something else for him, that the team were kind of moving in a good direction. I've seen some interviews where players are talking about Nuno and what he's bringing to the club, trying to bring that family atmosphere back, a bit like what they had under Pochettino. But I think Harry Kane's head is just scrambled. I think he's just had enough. I think he's probably annoyed that he's not gotten the move. Maybe it was a case a bit similar to what Berbatov and Modric went through, where they were told, look, give us one more season, get us back into the Champions League. and we'll leave you go on your way. Who knows? But it's certainly worrying times for Tottenham because Harry Kane isn't playing at Harry Kane's level. He is a top professional. We all know that. But yesterday, he looked miles off the pace. And then you have a problem if he's your main star, that could they have brought someone else on to replace him just to say, like, come on, Harry, you're not at it today. Are you going to get back to the level where these big clubs are willing to pay £100 million for you?
No one's paying 100 million quid at the moment for that, are they? Like, that's the thing. He's actually playing himself. I don't know. Maybe one of the clubs thinks they can rescue him and that this is a blip and he'll get back to his form. But how long can this continue?
Maybe it moves so quickly that it suits both Manchester City and Spurs for Harry Kane to make that move in January. City might be in desperate need by then, and Spurs may think, actually, that 120 million will do us just fine.
Okay,
let's. You're still talking about 3.5 months, though. It's Manchester City. We saw them last year. Started off really slow and then went on this incredible winning streak. That they, Pep will trust the process. He won't panic. Obviously, he'll get jumpy over certain games if they play top 6 sides. He will be restless, but he'll trust the process to say, this is a long season. I know my team can come good. Like, Erling Haaland is available next season for half of 60 million. That's the thing. And then you look at someone at his age, the amount of goals he's scoring, not only in the Bundesliga, the Champions League, that Pep might go, do you know what? I want this fella.
Yeah.
There's obviously that
the type of goals he's scoring.
Yeah.
It's my favourite Sunday night thing is when someone tweets the 88th minute winner that Erling Haaland scores, and every one of them is different. The one last night where chips the keeper or lobs it over the keeper from the edge of the area and knows exactly what he's doing, sends it about 50 yards up into the air, so it bounces exactly on the line and in.
So it is an interesting one, and look, Harry Kane he doesn't look at it. And we've seen enough people talking about how professional he is, everything, and I've heard the same stories. I've spoken to the same kinds of people. Like, he does look miles off it. That was just his performance second half yesterday was awful. Well, even in the first half too. For someone who is so good, has so much ability, do you know what I mean? Someone who can get you goals in moments. You even seen him in the international break, the goal he scored, just gets the ball like 25, 30 yards out, scores, whatever you can top of the keeper. But he's someone that can do things. He just doesn't look like he's... The biggest thing is you want to see players play, with a smile on their face and they're happy and they're working for their teammates. There was none of that yesterday. None of that from him.
Do you think he's going to make things right at Spurs? Or do you think it's at that point now where divorce is inevitable?
I think he'll make things right. I think the type of person he is, I think he will make things right. I think yesterday would have been a good wake-up call for him. There's also at the same time, then he's probably looking at Chelsea kind of going like, you love the way Sky build up all the games. You go back to, the Battle of the Bridge where Tottenham played Chelsea and Chelsea beat them and everybody handed the league. But there was that a passion and raw emotion in the game. Chelsea just yesterday turned up and, certainly in the start of the second half, they just kind of went, well, we're Chelsea, we're better than you. I mean, we're a better team than you. We're more organised. We know what we're doing. And they just blew them apart second half. Like, first half, Tottenham got the rub of it, but then, like, we've said it 100 times here that Tuchel makes a tactical change. It just felt that Chelsea are moving, like an upward rise of Tottenham, that they're moving ahead of Tottenham and that Tottenham are just being left behind. And that was clearly evident in the second half. And you could tell the frustration, not only in Kane as well, there's other players as well. That Tottenham, I'm not going to say they're going to have serious problems, but the season, I feel, will end up petering away from them and they'll finish in, 6th to 7th, when really you expect Tottenham, that they have very good players, they have a very good starting 11, that they could be trying to push the top 4. The way it's going after yesterday, I'd see them just faltering short and ending up, just comfortably taking a Europa League place.
The Manchester United game yesterday, we had live commentary on it, and it felt like we've commentated on this Manchester United game about 20 times over the last year, where they start quite slowly, go a goal behind, suddenly they spark into life. They've just got so much attacking talent. Someone is always going to get them back into the game, yet still can't control the match in the second half and sort of eke it out and show character. And you can't question that there's not a lot of character in this United side right now. but you're also left with the same questions about the middle of midfield. I'm just thinking, when you're talking about Marcos Alonso, is this where the difference in quality of coaching really comes home to roost for Manchester United? Because Marcos Alonso is not the best left back in the world. Cesar Azpilicueta is not the best right back in the world. Yet he's managed to get them as integral parts of his Chelsea team. And we look at Manchester United, and all the focus is on, well, if they had a world-class central midfielder, they'd win the league. But they've 9-10 world-class players on that side. Surely good manager can come up with a system that one area where you're missing that one player, you can somehow get by without them.
Well, every player United have is more or less 50 million in each position. There's no getting away from that. They have a team assembled of world-class players. You talk about their system. Obviously, he likes to play that kind of 4-2-1-3. He obviously likes to play the kind of 2-6s. You know, he went with Fred McTominay, who seems to be his go-to. I think McTominay adds the legs. I think that's why he's so important to that midfield. I think when people talk about a world-class number 6, you know, obviously you've got Kante, who's the best in the world at it, in turning over possession, winning tackles, his interceptions, everything. You look at probably the performance of Declan Rice in the Europa League, certainly, you know, in the game against United. He brings a bit more to just the 6. He's very good at winning the ball back, getting in great areas. He drives the team forward. And I don't think Manchester United's Fred or McTominay or Matic, Donny van de Beek, when he's played, they don't do that. And I think Declan was a prime example. He's the name, obviously, that's been touted, of course, to Manchester United. He does add a bit more. Like Fred, he's comfortable in possession. He wants to get it, keep it simple, keep it easy. McTominay tries his best to be that driving force in midfield. But I think it's kind of also a bit unfair in him, because when we look at Manchester United and we go back down over the years, and it's very hard to get away from it, but you look at the great midfielders they've had for the oldies like ourselves who remember Robson, then on to Kane and Scholes, Nicky Butt. They've always had phenomenal midfielders who can, you know, play that 6. And that's kind of missing piece to their jigsaw. Like they've got, you know, Sancho Greenwood. They've got Ronaldo, who looks unstoppable. He's going to score goals. You've still got Rashford to come back, you know, which is going to be huge. You've got, you know, Bruno and Pogba to provide. It's just you're looking for that safety blanket, that 6 who can sit there, mop up everything, who doesn't want to be, you know, back page of the newspaper for scoring 40-yard screamers. They just want to be in the team, doing the basics right, getting on the ball, turning over, you know, whenever the opposition is pressing you, you're comfortable in possession, but then at the same time, when the opposition have the ball, you're winning it back in good areas, you're keeping it simple, you're keeping your team taking over. That player can afford to leave Pogba and Bruno do what they want, where they've said, do you know what, I've got this, I'm so good at what I do. And that's a big thing. And that will, if they could get that 6, then that would be huge, because, you know, the back 4 then feel more confident because they're getting less balls, because the 6 is kind of half doing their job at the same time.
I know Damien Delaney would make the point that a 6 doesn't necessarily fix things completely because of the attributes of the back 4, that he was making the point that even N'Golo Kante couldn't save Manchester United the way they're playing, that because of the lack of pace of Maguire, they don't want to play a high enough line. There's 2 big gaps. And we saw that yesterday. Like, it was bizarre the amount of times yesterday that West Ham broke. And you're kind of going, where's the midfield? And it turned out actually McTominay and Fred were there. They were actually back behind the ball. None of the other 4 tried to get back. None of the other 5 tried to get back at all. But they had to play so deep because the defence was so deep. It left acres of space, that because United can't play a high line because of the lack of pace of Maguire, that a number 6 is going to be in a very difficult position.
Yeah, but I get what Damien's saying. I get where Damien's coming from. And, you know, if the centre-halves are dropping off once the opposition is in possession in, say, the middle third, then there isn't massive space between the midfield and the defenders, where a number 10, a creative player, can pop into those spaces, pick up the ball, get turned and drive straight. There's also the case that Manchester United back 4 will drop off because they're not as confident with the 6s that they're going to be able to turn over possession and win possession. That makes sense. If United were to sign a world-class number 6, we don't know if the Manchester United back 4 will, you know, push up. I imagine Damien probably spoke about Van Dijk or Liverpool or something, because Liverpool squeezed the life out of it. They try and shorten the pitch. That's one of Jurgen's massive things. It's something they work on a lot in training, that they push right up in the team. Like if you look at it at times, Alisson will be out by the D in the box. The back four will be on the halfway line. Manchester United mightn't feel as comfortable that they'll think, do you know what? Let's just drop off, because the old saying in football is, if the ball is in front of you, you've done your job. So if Maguire and Varane drop off and they bring the fullbacks back, it also gives time to slow down the attack. Now, West Ham did it well enough where they look to counter-attack, and if you play at high speeds and you get good movement and, good passing, good play, you can create problems if the back four drop off. At the same time, if you push right up, you leave acres of space in behind you. It is a catch-22, and it is a difficult one. I feel if they were to add a 6, like the one we always say is probably N'Golo Kante is the example. If they had N'Golo Kante, I feel the Manchester United back four would push up, and they would leave that space behind them. But it's hard to say, because unless they sign a world-class number 6, we'll never know. But certainly in the case of you don't know if that's information they're receiving from the coaches that's saying, right, well, drop back off, give yourself space to assess the situation. Do we need to step in? Do we then just, hold their line here and leave them come on to us, buy yourselves time so that the midfield and the forwards can get back?
The problem seems to be that we don't believe Solskjaer has that philosophy, because he's never articulated it. He's never told us that he's trying to get to this point, or he's never put his team out to play like that, even against sides who aren't very good.
But at the same time, Jared, how many managers have all stated their philosophies? Like, okay,
they don't need to,
right?
most of them, though, because you watch them play. You watch Chelsea play. You watch Liverpool play. You watch Manchester City. You can see exactly.
Wait.
It
I'd
seems
say all
Manchester
those three
United's
have actually. I'd say all those three would happily bore you
I'm
for
sure they
45
would bore you,
minutes.
but it feels watching United that the plan is, and maybe it's a great plan, give the ball to one of the 5 brilliantly attacking players we have and let them score.
I agree with you, right? Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City and Leeds. Right? There's the 4 teams who all have managers that we know of. We know their philosophies. Now, can you tell me what Norwich's philosophy is, West Ham's philosophy is, Everton's philosophy? It's because they're the big teams. We see so much of them. They're managers with, world-class players scattered around the team. Okay, Leeds, unfortunately, don't have world-class players. But that is Bielsa's style, which has been evident all the way back to his days at Newell's Boys. That's the way he's always played, with that intensity, that desire, that man-to-man system where we go after every player and we basically win by overrunning teams. The other teams, like the big teams, we know their philosophy. The question is, what is Arteta's philosophy? It's easy to point to, Guardiola, Tuchel and Klopp and say, well, that's obvious, because, all those managers have done it at previous clubs. Like Pep is not going to change his style, no. Nor is Jurgen. He did it at Dortmund, whatever. The thing is, it's Man United are probably still trying to find out their philosophy under Solskjaer. They've got a lot of fantastic players in different positions. And it's not a case of, it even goes back to probably with Stephen, with Ireland. He's trying to implement these styles, and it is difficult to turn over it in time. Now, there are other question marks with Manchester United that, look, they're not a title-winning team yet. They certainly have all the players' attributes and characteristics, but if United were to go up against Liverpool, Manchester City, Chelsea, frequently, you'd feel that, they would come up short. They have the players, but you would back the other 3 managers I've mentioned to tactically get it right against them if they were to play. And at the moment, United, like yesterday, the result against West Ham, after yesterday, it's great. Manchester United win. During the week, there's a crisis. We're in free flow. It's all over the place. Solskjaer should be sacked and all this. And then, right, great win. Do you know what I mean? There's all the controversy with Mark Noble taking the penalty, Ronaldo and his penalty shouts. It's just so much. But it's easy to point to those philosophies of the big clubs. But we know what they're doing.
Maybe he'll never have a philosophy. Like maybe Solskjaer is the Carlo Ancelotti figure, and maybe it's the perfect figure for Manchester United right now, who knows how to handle big names, who can indulge Ronaldo just enough, Pogba just enough, and they all still seem very much on side with Solskjaer. You never hear anything from all the Paul Pogba rumblings about his future that he has any issue at all with Solskjaer, that maybe he doesn't have the philosophy, he doesn't have the deep tactical mind of those 3, but he has an ability to bring attacking players together and let them play their best. And it does feel, watching how good they are, like they're going to win the vast majority of their games because of how good they are going forward, that they should be very close to winning a title this season.
I just feel that they will, when the push comes to shove in those really big games against the other top, 6 sides. We saw it against Villarreal in the Europa League. That's where your question mark comes. That's where can you get a team that organised, and can you win the big games? The cup finals, whatever. That's where the question mark is. Like, look, you expect them to beat West Ham. Really, you're going to expect them to beat the majority of teams. They've got Manchester United have got an incredible squad, and of course they've signed one of the best players of all time, whose goal scoring record's off the chart. He just looks like he's going to score in every game he plays. But it's just in the big games, you can't be relying on Ronaldo, Sancho, Greenwood, Pogba, Bruno to create something that Ronaldo's going to score. There has to be more, and I think that's where they'll come short. I think that's going to be their biggest problem. But you touched on Solskjaer. I think after the Mourinho and Van Gaal situations, I think Solskjaer was probably the best appointment United could have gotten, because he's someone who knows the club, who's been around it for years, understands this Manchester United way. He's got the backing of Sir Alex, who's probably still partway involved, and all the players feed off him. And I think that is a huge thing. And you look at the situation with Pogba, if we go back 12 to 18 months ago, that just like Riola was out touting in the papers. I know he's been in the last week as well, speaking again. But I fully imagine Pogba would probably sign another contract to United because of what Solskjaer started. It's just now a case of they probably need, or they will need eventually, a manager who's going to take them that extra 5-10% to go and win a Premier League title, to go and win the Champions League. I think that's where he'll come up short.
It's going to be a glorious soap opera in the meantime. There was one last thing I wanted to ask you about, because the Cork lads are doing all right at the moment at Sheffield United.
I know, I was there.
You were at it, right?
Yeah. I took my little girl to watch the game, and I said, their daddy's friends are playing Connor and John. And next minute, Connor's whipping corners in and John's getting a free run. He's scoring headers. And I'm thinking, come on, John. But no, that's just I'm delighted to see the two of them doing well. I am. Like, of course, I was quite interested. I thought John might get a move in the summer. I thought there might be a couple of clubs, sniffing around him. Because he had a couple of decent seasons in the Premier League. And then obviously, he's an international player. He's one of the first names on the team sheet for Ireland. Of course, look, I think Billy Sharp is captain, but more or less John is kind of captain because Billy doesn't play every game. Then Connor was a prime example. I played golf with Connor just before he moved to Sheffield United. And he was just saying, I just want to go and play. And if you go back to January when he left, he went on loan to Swansea. I think there was a week in between him and his wife having a child. And he moves to Swansea, and you just think fair play, because this fella is desperate to play football. He's desperate to do well. And like I said before on this show, we want to see Irish players playing week in, week out, because it'll only benefit us. You look at Shane Duffy now, he's in flying form, someone who looked like he was out in the wilderness. And then, it's great to see Connor playing well. Of course, it was against Hull, who I still have an emotional connection with. But I'm happy to see them doing so well.
Yeah, I was surprised Howard didn't get more game time in the international fixtures. It felt as though they needed, particularly in the second game. I thought he was almost nearly being rested from the first match for the match against Azerbaijan, that he didn't get a chance to make more of an impact, because you say the second half of last season at Swansea, when he was playing that more advanced role, he was exceptional at times, but obviously...
That was obviously Stephen and his staff's decision. Maybe it was his lack of game time at the time. I imagine once the next internationals come around, if he's playing week in, week out with Sheffield United, he'd definitely be putting his hand up to start. But that's part and parcel of football. Once you're in training, managers make calls on team selection, subs. They might have seen something. I know exactly what you're getting at certainly with Connor's delivery from set pieces.
He should have been the team, yeah.
Except that short corner he took right at the end of the game.
Oh my God. Yeah, I was at the game. Against Serbia, yeah. Yeah, Connor, when you're watching this back, don't ever do that again. Give me a heart attack, yeah, when I just seen, was it about 8 Serbian players running up the pitch? Oh my God, yeah. But look, that's one of them. That's one of them where it happens. He made a call to make a short corner. It didn't work out. And as you're sprinting back, you're like, please don't score, please don't score, please don't score, please don't score. And lo and behold, they didn't score. But look, Yeah, look, Connor just needs to be playing week in, week out. He'll be the first to admit that himself. And if he's playing, you know, puts him in a better mood, puts him in better form. He's getting up to speed. Like he did really well the other day against Hull, albeit Hull aren't doing particularly well. But at the same time, it's good. It's good for Connor. It's good for Irish football. And it's good to see him doing it.
Yeah, good stuff. David, brilliant. Thanks a million.
Cheers, gents.